It is Thursday evening in the United States and the Western Hemisphere, and it's kind of Friday morning in other parts of the world. And welcome to Two Chicks and Radio with the host Rhea and
Cat, Dixie DX.
All right, okay. So this is our weekly show on Thursdays where we talk about amateur radio, we talk about the news, we might have a guest on from time to time, and we also do an educational stuff. So this week we're actually going to be talking about antennas, and we're going to be talking about some stuff that's on the exam. I kind of stole a book from one of my kids here, and we're going to be talking about that too. And lots of other cool, interesting stuff. There's been a lot of stuff going on here as well too. So, Kat, what's Oh, by the way, for reminders, this show plays on this channel, Rhea Shack Cam Radio, and also Dixie DX, which is Kat's channel. So, Kat, why don't you tell us a little more?
All right. Well, there's not been much going on. I added a little bitty teensy little 4-week-old kid to the family.
Wow. Nice.
She's in the kennel right now because I got to litter box train her.
Oh, it's a her or a him?
It's a her.
Okay.
And she's an orange tabby.
Orange, okay. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a little. So when I was in Queens, New York, we found a little kitten. Just showed up on the doorstep, because they show up on the doorstep. And once they show up on the doorstep, you own them. Okay, so they own you, right? And we named him Tiger because there's this person on an online forum about Honda Accords that said, "Oh, you got to name him Tiger." I'm like, okay, I'll name him Tiger. I named him Tiger. He grew up. We moved to like 3 places with him. And he crossed the Rainbow Bridge a few years ago. But he was, he was really nice little guy. So, the weather's been kind of wild here. We had little thunderstorms, power outage, and other stuff, and dealing with internet outages and such with Optimum not online. And I see a couple people in the chat here. I see better than 20 guys in no life.
Yeah.
Okay. And
it's actually been, it's been like 80 something degrees outside. It doesn't feel like it's 80 degrees outside. So it's been really nice.
Oh.
And it's not been humid or anything. So it's been really, tolerable. So.
Right. Okay, so let's go with the rules first of all. And we'll do a few things. So the first one I want to say is about my friend here, actually, Dr. Nathaniel Frizzell, who is the founder of HamSci. So have you ever heard of HamSci, Kat?
No.
Okay, so HamSci is an organization that does a lot of research into. So they're basically they connect professional researchers with amateur radio operators and radio amateurs and citizen scientists. And you have professional researchers doing science with ordinary citizen scientists, including amateur radio operators. And Dr. Frizzell, Nathaniel, he is one of the founder of this kind of thing. So I'll show this article from ARRL here, where they talk about the award that he got. And I'll see here. And Andy says he's a member of HamSci. That's great. I've been actually, right. So the HamSci founder, Dr. Frizzell, was awarded a $481,260 NASA research grant. Ham Radio Science Citizen Investigation founder Nathaniel Frizzell, W2NAF, an assistant professor in the University of Scranton's Physics and Engineering Department, I'll tell you about that in a minute, has been awarded $481,260 through NASA Space Weather Applications Operations Phase 2 research program. Frizzell will serve as a principal investigator for a research project entitled Enabling Space Weather Research with Global Scale Amateur Radio Datasets. He'll collaborate with Philip Erickson, WNPJE of Massachusetts, and the MIT Haystack Observatory, and Bill, I can't pronounce his last name, AB4EJ at the University of Alabama. All right. So, this story kind of has a Jersey connection and an Alabama connection. So, excuse me, Nathaniel, he's actually from New Jersey. He learned of amateur radio in Scouts, and he was actually introduced to amateur radio on field day by one of my friends in my local amateur radio club, Greg N2BSA. And Greg kind of introduced, Greg got him on the air and he got hooked into amateur radio, and he made a career out of amateur radio propagation, radio science and that kind of stuff. And it's really cool what he's gotten into. He's a very brilliant person. He used to be on faculty at, I believe it was NJIT, and then he ended up getting a better position at University of Scranton. So he left NJIT, and but such is life. You don't always stay in one place. And in 2019, he received a $1.3 million grant to fund a 3-year initiative to measure modulations produced in the Earth's upper atmosphere. He's just been doing a ton of great work. Do you remember that solar eclipse, Kat? Kat, you're on mute.
I do remember the solar eclipse.
Okay. Do you know about the solar eclipse QSO party, though?
No.
Okay. So back when they had the solar eclipse, they had like a big a contest, okay, an amateur radio contest. It wasn't really a contest. It was more like a special event where they encouraged amateurs. It was a contest, but they encouraged amateurs to make contacts all over, and then they encourage amateurs also to record the data using software-defined radios, and they then took that data, aggregated it, and also they used that to determine that the solar eclipse did have an effect on radio wave propagation. So the areas that were dark actually saw propagation similar to that would happen at night. And that was an interesting scientific finding. So that was some pretty interesting stuff. And he's been really just rocking it with them. So and he's one of amateur radio's bright stars. So I'm really pleased that he's doing that. So we have some somber news as well. It's coming up in that time of the year again. As you know, I live in the New York, New Jersey area. I lived in New York during 9/11, and we are going to commemorate 9/11. We have several special event stations, so look out for them. You can see them on the ARRL website, where there's an article about the anniversary of 9/11. I think it's the 20th anniversary of 9/11, because that happened in 2001. So it's
yes, it is the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So, yeah, that was definitely a sad day.
Yeah, sure. So they're going to commemorate. I mean, it was terrible. So I really I'll probably try to work him, but I wouldn't. I'm not in a good mood that day. So that is 2 items of news, and let me tell you what else is going on too. There's a lot of news post-storm and post, of all of these different things with the Hurricane Ida. They also say, as you saw, they published a report of all the communications that were affected by Ida, all the cell towers and stuff. You believe people still without power down there? Without power down by you, it's just,
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the FCC is basically going to still follow guidelines for affected Louisiana parishes and Mississippi counties. So, this would be basically for things that are, regular licenses and such like that experience, so we're going to do extra time to do it. Alright, so let's see short interviews. And I'll tell you tonight's topic. So we're going to actually be changing up the show a little bit. We're going to still have guests on, okay? And I received some very positive feedback from some other creators, and you know who you are. Thank you very much. We're probably only try to, because Kat's over, right? Kat's, she's very, I've been this already. I think I'll be 25 years in more weeks here.
Your audio is messing up in and out.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on, but something's interfering with it. Because you'll go from talking normal to sound like you're talking underneath water and in a fish tank.
Okay.
So whatever you just did, it's fine.
All right. Okay. That should be better. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So anyway, we're going to change up the, I'm sorry about my mic. We're going to change up the format of the show a little bit. What we're going to do is, I really need to fix this mic thing. We're going to actually, since Kat is a new ham, she's a new radio amateur. She's been licensed. How long have you been licensed now, Kat?
Over a year now.
Okay. Over a year. Okay. It's not bad. And you got motivated.
Of June 2020. Actually, June 20 of 2020. Yeah.
6/20/2020. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you got motivated because your dad was into amateur radio.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, so I want to help you. I want to help you, grow and learn in amateur radio, and I want to help our audience too, as well. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be, talk about a different topic every week, and we're going to see how that goes. And then we're going to get you to ask questions, and then we're going to try to answer them. And we're going to also get the audience, because we want to get, people interested in amateur radio and learning. I realize learning is big in amateur radio. So, all right. So this week's topic is antennas. So, Kat, tell me what you know about antennas.
Well,
it doesn't matter how basic. Just let me know.
Just that antennas they can be dipoles, they can be a single wire, they can be inverted, they can be round, they can be all sorts of things. However, I've never seen a rectangle antenna. So
they do exist, to be honest. If you've ever looked at, I have an antenna actually on a tower that has a rectangular element.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever seen 6 meters, the 6 meter band?
No.
Okay. You've never operated a 6 meter band?
No.
Okay. So I have a 6 meter antenna called a loop fed array, right?
Okay.
What it is I'll try to bring up one here. What it is kind of a, you know what a Yagi antenna is, right?
Yes.
Okay. So it's a Yagi antenna, but instead of a straight element as a driven element, which is the one where you attach a coax, it has a rectangle. And I'll show you this here. This is a perfect picture of it, actually. Well, mine has 5 elements. And I will see here. LFA antenna. I think this is from Bing. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So you see the antenna is a loop, right? And it's rectangular. Yeah. These antennas are very, very quiet. They don't have a lot of noise. So they're great for, you point them at the horizon to work, more distant stations, horizontal. You point them at the moon to bounce signals off the moon using moon bounce. So that's, like, as you mentioned, rectangular antenna. Anyway, so what else do you know about antennas?
Let's see here. Let's see here. They go in different directions. So you have some that are vertical, horizontal, and then you have omnidirectional ones.
Okay.
I know that.
Well, that's good. All right, so let's start with the bare basics, right? So the basic of an antenna is that the antenna is the interface between the radio waves that are in space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, through the atmosphere. Radio waves don't actually travel on the atmosphere. They travel in space. And then when the waves reach the antenna, they're converted into electrical currents. And then that gets fed down the transmission line, which is your coax, then eventually to your receiver. When you're transmitting, the opposite happens. The transmitter creates the radio waves, the radio wave signals, passes up the transmission line, goes to the antenna, and then the antenna radiates that and it creates waves. So that's it in a nutshell about antennas, right?
Right.
You mentioned vertical and horizontal antennas, right?
Right.
You're thinking about antennas with single elements or more than one element?
Well, unsure.
Okay.
Because
So
I know that they're vertical, horizontal, and all that kind of stuff. So
right. So let me tell you some interesting facts about antennas. The first antenna was actually made by, and this name will sound familiar, by Heinrich Hertz. And he, Hertz is the guy who they named, like frequency after, right? So
yeah.
Heinrich Hertz, he made experiments to prove that waves existed, and the waves were actually theorized by another scientist called James Clerk Maxwell. So Hertz actually made a dipole, right? And he made like, a parabola, which is like, a parabola is like the dish, right? So a parabola is kind of a mathematical term for the dish structure. And he did that for transmitting and receiving. And then, of course, you had others like Guglielmo Marconi. You know Marconi, right? He developed antennas for long distance, and Marconi actually won a Nobel Prize for that. So how do antennas work? So let's back up a bit. Okay. I explain how the antennas work, sorry.
You're fine.
Yeah. All right, so we talked about the history of antennas. So actually, pretty much anything could be an antenna, even like a piece of wire or even your finger, anything could be an antenna, because they actually, once they conduct electricity, and everything pretty much conducts electricity, they will receive the radio waves and conduct them and, turn them into electric currents. All right. All right. So what's your next question about antennas?
Okay. I probably should have more questions, but it's all right. All right. The gain on the antenna.
Okay, so gain is a good question. So I actually have a whole video on why antennas have gain. And antennas don't really have gain. They have gain in particular directions. So this doesn't mean that you put in, let's say, 5 watts of power and just get 10 watts out as if that 10 watts came from nowhere. You have basically the antenna, each antenna has a pattern where it has gain in specific directions in the horizontal and vertical planes. And then what happens is the waves kind of get squeezed and they're concentrated in those one directions, which is how you end up having gain.
Right.
Right? And what is gain measured in?
Gain is measured in I want to say hertz. No.
Hertz is a
No,
measure of
not hertz.
frequency.
Frequency.
Yeah, but what is antenna's gain
Oh,
is
no, I said
measured
hertz, but
in.
whatever. That's because you said hertz earlier. That's why.
That hurts.
That hurts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we can go on and on about hertz.
Right. So, and antenna gain is measured in decibels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a decibel is actually, I think you probably learned about decibels in a technician in general exam. Well, more so a technician. So a decibel actually is it's not really a decibel is basically a unit that compares things, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, and it's based on the mathematical principles of what you call logarithm, but we don't need to get that complicated. The easiest thing to remember about gain and decibels is that 3 decibels is approximately twice, right? Is approximately 2 times. And 10 decibels is approximately 10 times. That's all you really need to remember, because most questions will be modeled in that, okay? And I have my friend Jim here, and Jim is a real mensch. He's he builds repeaters and stuff, and he has something to tell us too here. Have you ever heard the terms dBi and dBd when it comes to antennas?
Yes and no.
Okay. So remember I said that dB, decibels, you're actually comparing something.
Okay? Right.
And you might have seen an antenna where it gives the specifications. So I'll try to bring up a popular antenna here. Let's say like a Yagi has like a, I don't know, 5 or 6 dB. Let's go simple. It has a 3 dB gain, right? So I just mentioned to you that 3 dB means twice something, okay? And decibels is more of a comparison. But what am I comparing it to? Am I comparing? Okay, so this, let me show you the specs of a very popular antenna here. And I'll bring this up for you. Okay. Right. Yeah, so it is a ratio. It's a measure of ratio. So this is a C31XR, which is a giant tri-band beam. One of my friends, W2IRT, who I've climbed his tower a few times. I've done drone shoots of his tower. I've operated his station for contests and such, and he has a C31XR, which is a massive antenna. And you see these gain figures here. They tell you, they tell the physical characteristics like the boom length and stuff like that. It tells you peak gain, and they tell you 8 dBd or 10 dBi. Okay, and Jim Aspinwall, NO1PC, because he does a lot of work with PCs. He wants us to answer this question: what's the difference between dBd and dBi? So you notice they give you 2 ratings here, right? One in dBd and one in dBi. Can you tell me, make a guess as the difference?
No, because anything I guess is going to sound like I'm crazy.
No, that's okay.
I pulled it out of my hiney.
Okay. So dBd is in reference to a dipole, right? So you have a reference half-wave dipole. You know what a dipole is, right? Basically,
yes.
An antenna that's half wave long, and it's you connect the coax to the center or the transmission line to the center, and you have quarter wave on each end, and the whole thing's half wave. So you have dBd, which is in reference to a reference dipole. dBi is in reference to a single point source. It's not in reference to any kind of antenna. It's just basically basically they're saying that you're starting from 1. Okay, so you're in reference to basically a single point source, and that's called an isotropic. So decibels with reference to a reference isotropic antenna. So dBi, as a result, tends to be higher than dBd, because the gain of a dipole, they tell you the gain of a dipole is usually 2.15 dBi, right? So to get the dBd, you just subtract 2.15 from the dBi figure, or to get the dBi figure from the dBd, you add 2.15 dB. I think they're rounded up here because I don't see 0.15. And that's it in a nutshell here. Okay, all right. Yeah, so this is a good point. Let's see here. Yeah, so dBd, it's a measurement above an actual antenna. Okay. Good cat's in a hot seat. Look, I try to teach people. I'm not trying to get them, you know.
Look, I sat there and gave him the red face that's sweating its butt off.
So dB is in reference, means nothing unless it's a reference to something, right?
Right.
Yeah. So isotropic is kind of an imaginary antenna because, yeah, it is an imaginary antenna because it's a single point source. You know, it's basically, it's no antenna. It's just basically imagining the RF coming out of a single point, right?
Gotcha.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So Jim's on fire here. I think I'm going to bring Jim on as a co-host sometime. Okay. So the yeah, and Force 12 tends to be a little, you know, they have a lot of, you know, they've been around a long while, but JK Antennas actually bought their designs and makes their antennas now, right? Okay. So you know what Yagi antennas too, you have, so you see this thing on the side here. I'm going to try to make this bigger here, right? This here is the plot of the antenna, and here you can see the pattern where you have this little lobe at the back, and then you have the big lobe at the front, the forward direction. So why this is important is that you have the front to back ratio, you have it 20 dB. So I mentioned dB is really a comparison, right? So we're comparing two things. So here in this case, you're actually comparing the forward gain to the reverse gain. So you're actually comparing the forward side of the antenna to the back side of the antenna. And this way, this is important because when you're selecting a Yagi antenna, you know, gain is not the most important characteristic of an antenna, right? Can you tell me what gain gets you in an antenna? Like, remember, we just talked about gain, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So gain is, remember I said that gain is in an antenna. You're not actually gaining anything. Right.
All you're doing is increasing the signal strength.
In one direction.
Right?
Correct. Or a particular point in the plane. Okay. Now, so here you have the front and you have the back. Okay. And you notice the back is a lot smaller than the front. Right? And the front is a lot larger. So you find that the radio waves are being increased towards the front at the expense of the back and also the sides, to be honest, right? Because you can also receive off the sides, but there isn't really, you know, much on the sides. There isn't really much on the back. There's a huge lobe in front. So when you select a Yagi antenna, if you're using it for DXing or something like that, the gain is not the most important figure. One of the important figures is the front to back ratio, where you actually, you're not, you know, you're gaining signals in the front, but you're also rejecting from the back. And this could be useful, for example, if you're contacting one particular area of the world or of the United States, and you don't want to be interfered with by the people behind you. Like, let's say you're calling, I don't know, let's say you're calling Europe, right? You're working DX in Europe. And then behind you will probably be those loud people in, I don't know, Louisiana or Texas. Let's
Yes,
say
it's
you,
Texas people.
yeah, they're going to be loud for you, right?
Yeah.
Well, if your antenna has that rejection from the back, you're not going to hear them as loud, and you can hear the station you're trying to work, without hearing the ones in the back. That's why front to back ratio is important. All right, let's see what else the audience is talking about here. And so is this about transistors and receivers? No, it's about antennas. We could talk about transceivers another day, right?
Yes.
Favorable band conditions do not hurt at all. That's true. But you'll find that you definitely need an antenna to pick out the weak ones. Have you ever done any, you've actually worked DX or contests at other people's stations, right?
Yes.
Okay. And have you ever tried to pick out like a really weak one?
Yes.
Okay. Is it frustrating? Did you ever have to like turn the antenna, or were you working on a dipole?
I don't remember because I don't know what they were. I just know that they were outside, hooked up.
Okay. Texas drink.
Nobody told me what they were.
Okay.
Apparently, if we say Texas, we got a drink.
I'm out of drink. I don't know what else I have here to drink.
Here.
Okay. Yeah, Texans are nice people. I always have a good time when we go to Texas. They used to have that big ham fest called HamCom down in Texas. I used to enjoy going to. But there's a funny story about that. It involves things I don't want to talk about. But basically, somebody found something of mine. I was quite embarrassed. Anyway, yeah. Somebody said they got New Jersey on 13 Colonies. All right. Yeah, you know what? I wasn't involved in 13 Colonies this year. I don't know why. I don't know if they dropped me or if I just, didn't have time. Last year I kind of skipped it because I didn't have time, and I guess this year they wanted to have operators who actually operated, so that's probably why I wasn't included. All right. Yes? Okay, yeah, he just wants a hug. You see, he got a new haircut, and he's all showing everybody.
Of course he wants to see his new. Oh, look at him. He's being so shy.
They started school yesterday, again. So anyway, lightning protection and static. Yes, you know what? I'm thinking of if you have anybody that can talk about that authoritatively. I could talk about it because I have a comprehensive lightning protection system. Maybe when I do I hate to say the word fall in reference to towers, but when I do the annual tower inspections that I do of towers and antennas in the back, I'll show some of the grounds too. What do I do for a living? I sit in rooms with no windows, and no. What do I do for a living? I actually don't do anything with electronics or anything. I do IT for the financial industry, believe it or not. But I just know a lot about ham radio. What about you, Kat?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I am a Jill of all trades and a master of none.
Okay. Cool.
That's the best thing I can tell you.
Right. So we talked about lobes and nulls, and actually this is a good question. So Kat, I think you can probably figure out the answer for this one. Do different HF bands affect the lobe and nulls of an antenna?
Yes.
Yes, they do. And a classic example of this is where you have an antenna that's a dipole, but it's a dipole fed with ladder line instead of coaxial cable, right? And you'll find that on different bands, the nulls will be sharper and the lobes will be sharper, because just the antenna's different lengths, and because of that, you'll have narrower patterns on certain directions. So yes, it is affected by band. And it's one thing really that when we first moved into into my house, we got I didn't have any good antennas up. We put up a long doublet in a tree. I just took a piece of wire, maybe like, I don't know, 60 feet in length, because I just felt that was a good long amount. I cut it in half, put it on a piece of open wire line. Then I took that, threw it up in a tree, and then with that, I actually connected up a balun, which is a transformer, and then connected that up to the radio. And I was wondering why some areas were pretty strong and some were not. So I found out that that antenna was totally not, cut for the bands. It was not resonant on the bands that I was
trying to work.
Yeah. And then I found out that eventually there were nulls in the directions I did want to work. So yeah. Let's see here. I want to buy a new doublet. Why don't you make one? All right. Do I own a CB? You know what? I have not for several years, but spoiler alert, I just got a GMRS license because I have a few things coming up with GMRS. I wanted to wait on a $35 fee, but do you have a CB, Cat, or not?
No.
No?
No. What am I going to do? Breaker, 19.
I don't, people up by me, okay? Because our cell reception is so bad, there are people up by me with CBs in their cars, okay?
Okay.
To call home.
Like, I'm sorry, but I'd be like sitting there messing with people. I'd be like, hey, this is Smokey the Bandit. You got them people on your tail there, sir.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I'd be causing all sorts of mischief if I had a CB. So it's probably best that I don't have one. Or I'd be like getting on there and be like, "Where the hell did you learn how to drive? Did you get your license out of Cracker Jack box? Your CDL?"
Right. So we talked about the length of antennas, right? And the antennas are different lengths. Do you know why they're different lengths?
Because of the band that you're trying to use it on.
That's a very good answer. And could you tell me why they're different for each band?
Depending on... Oh, crap. I can't tell you that one.
Why not?
I don't know. I can't think of anything right now.
Okay, that's fine. You're here to learn.
Okay.
You're here to learn.
I'm here to learn.
And I'll tell you exactly why. Do you know the relationship between frequency and wavelength?
Frequency and wavelength. Oh my goodness, you're having me go into physics now.
All right. Well, let's step back a bit. Do you know why 20 meters is called 20-meter band?
Because it's 20 meters in length?
Because the wavelength of the wave is almost, it's a little longer than 20 meters, but that name stuck, okay? Well, let's just say it's 20 meters, right?
Right.
Okay, so because it's 20 meters, you'll find that there's a concept called resonance, where the waves will basically be, most efficient on an antenna that is some multiple of, including like a half wave of that particular wavelength. And most dipole antennas are actually cut for, half wave dipole is cut for half of the wavelength of a particular frequency. Right? Okay. So that's why there are different lengths on different bands. But did you know that, and here's a good one. You know about the 80-meter band, right?
No.
You know what 80 meters, the frequency?
Yeah, I know the 80 meters frequency, yes.
Okay.
But
do you know
no.
All
It's
right.
got to be pretty short.
All right. 80 meters is kind of, it's a long, it's 80 meters long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, do you know the 40 meter band? Okay.
Yes, I know about that one. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what frequency is the 40 meter band?
Oh, shoot. I'm not for sure. I'd have to look it up.
All right. So let's see here now. The 40 meter band runs from 7 to 7.3 megahertz. Okay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you have 7, keep that number 7 in mind. Okay.
Okay.
The 15 meter band runs from 21 to 21.45. Okay.
Okay.
21 megahertz and 7 megahertz. What do they, how are they related? It seems like you can get some relationship out of them.
Well, and you said 7, and what was the other one? 21?
Yeah.
Oh, that's 3.
Okay. So it's 3 times, right?
Yeah, 3 times 7. Uh-huh.
Okay. Did you know that if you cut a dipole for the 40 meter band, right?
Mm-hmm.
You essentially get the 15 meter band for free,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So this is kind of interesting. And then we talk about the relationship between wavelength and frequency, and All right. Let's see. So what else would you like to know about antennas?
I'm not for sure. I'm trying to think. Stephen Miller says harmonics.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's a
So
good one.
let's talk about harmonics. So we talked about multiples, right? So tell me. Okay. So harmonics, right? When you have a.
Yeah.
All right. So if you pluck a guitar string, right? You don't hear like just one continuous tone. You hear a bunch of overtones,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And depending on where you're at on the guitar string determines the sound that you're hearing.
right. So you hear a number. You hear the main note, which is a fundamental, right? And then you have the second harmonic, the first overtone, which is the second harmonic, which is basically 2 times the frequency, right?
Right.
So you get that. And then you get another harmonic, which is 3 times the frequency, which is the the third harmonic. And then you have the fourth harmonic, and so on. But you find that as you go up, they get less and less, they get weaker and weaker. So they're less and less in amplitude. Why harmonics are important? Because remember I just mentioned to you the antenna that you get when you're doing on 40 meters, and you get the one for 21 megahertz for free. So that would imply that the 15 meter band is essentially harmonically related to the 40 meter band, because they're multiples of each other. This is good and bad, because if you have an antenna with 40 meter that's tuned for 40 meters, you essentially get the 15 meter one for free. But it also means that if you have something like an antenna together that are 40 and 15 meters band, you're going to have some kind of interaction, and it's going to be a little, you're going to have some problems because they will interact. This is especially true of an antenna called a fan dipole, where you have multiple dipole elements that are on the same feed line, but of course you have 40 meters and you have 15 meters, and they will interact. So let's go back. Alright, let's see what else here. The hat. Okay. What do you know about ground? How is the ground useful? Do
The
antennas,
ground?
do antennas work well close to the ground?
No.
Some of them do actually, but
Okay.
most of them don't. But
Yeah. Most
yeah,
of them, they're like on something and they're above the ground.
right.
Then you have some of them like my chameleon. It's in the ground and then
Right.
swings up.
Yeah. So ground is an interesting thing. Okay. Ground fits antennas because
Ground itself is
conductive. Right? And ground, ground can do a few things. Okay.
if your antenna is too low to the ground, you'll find that the antenna will actually behave a little differently because
The ground will actually become part of the antenna.
and it might be tuned for one frequency, but the ground will end up detuning it. That's one. Two, if you have even a vertical antenna that's short and low to the ground, you'll find that it will end up losing some of the signal and through something called ground losses. It's two. Three, antennas that are a certain height above the ground actually take advantage of the ground to amplify the signal, to actually reflect the signal off the ground, and they come together and they actually, you actually get more gain that way.
Okay.
All right. So verticals in particular as well have a special relationship with ground. If you have a ground mounted vertical, it's basically straight up in the air, and then you have it on straight ground. You've used vertical antennas before, right? Like I guess
Yes.
okay, HF or VHF, or I think
It was Companion and Past Lights. I think it was HF.
okay. I'm not familiar with the impasse light. What is that, like a ground plane or something, or?
Well, it's basically you can turn it into an inverted V, or you can use it straight up, and I use that straight up. There's different options for it, but it's the Chameleon. Hold on. It's very portable. It's a vertical antenna as well. Yes. Hang on.
Yeah, I don't know. Modulation.
It's a. Let's see here. It is a vertical antenna.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Here. Give me a second.
So the impasse light, it's basically a ground mounted vertical, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay. I'm not too familiar. I'm familiar with other antennas like the Hustler 6BTV, the trap band verticals, or even like a 43-foot vertical, right? The point is that a lot of these antennas actually, they interact with the ground. And what you do is, in order to get to proper ground on these antennas, ground plane on these antennas, you have to put radial wires out, which actually act as the return for the antenna. So they essentially, antenna has to have the radiating element and the return. So the radials serve as that. Otherwise, the ground is a very poor conductor. All right, what else? NVIS, okay. Have you ever heard of NVIS? Near vertical incidence skywave?
No.
Okay, remember I talked about low antennas?
That's a low antenna.
And I said low antennas are actually good sometimes. Well, NVIS is one of those. It's called near wave, where the antenna actually, it takes advantage of Okay, so because it's close to the ground, right? Normally when you have your antenna sending out a radio wave, it will send it at a particular angle, right? Now to work DX, you want to have a low angle of radiation where it's low to more toward the horizon. If you're working local signals, however, if you're working local stations, that's not going to do well because it's just going to skip over everybody. What you do is you have a lower dipole that will actually send the angle of radiation higher up, and then that will bounce off the ionosphere at a much higher angle and then scatter down to people local to you. So, you know, yeah, it's basically just a dipole at low height, sort of. All right, let's see. Yeah, NVIS antennas in the National Guard. Yeah, you can actually, I think the military uses them. I know hams use them for emergency communications and such. So, yeah, near vertical incidence skywave. Yep, Rick has it right, and then Brian has it right too. All right. Wish they would hurry up and ship my order. I don't know. Who is that? Like Alpha Antenna? You said. Yeah, you know, I haven't bought an antenna in a while. I think cat dropped off. Cat brought a cat. Okay, so tell us about your little friend. You're on mute. You're on mute. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I got it unmuted now. She is about 4 weeks.
Okay.
We have not quite named her yet. I'm going through. Look. My goodness, poor little baby kitty.
Wow.
So anyway, she pooped on me before the show, so I had to go take a shower.
Ouch.
Yeah, that was not a nice poopy. Let me say that.
Yeah, it's probably really liquid or something.
Yeah. No. So I put her in a little kennel with a little thing of litter, so that way we can try to get her litter trained. Because she's been outside this whole time.
Wow. Name her Slayer. MRD is saying name her Slayer.
Whatever. No.
Any tips for HOA antennas? You know, a homeowners association is always a really interesting thing. A lot of them don't allow cats either. Some of them.
The HOA thing, the Diamond VX30A antenna is a good antenna for HOA antenna as well.
Yeah. So my tips, that's pretty interesting. My tips for an HOA antennas, okay? And I've had experience, but not with HOAs, with apartments. Name her Dixie Cup.
Dixie Cup? I don't think I'm going to name her a Dixie Cup.
Okay. Any tips for HOA antennas? So as far as HOA antennas go, if you can, I can tell you straight up, the best HOA antenna you can get away with is a flagpole. Okay? I know a lot of people who live in HOAs and they've become extremely patriotic, okay? Because they have these nice long flagpoles that, you know, that flagpole antennas. That's one way. If you can't get away with that, there are other ways to operate an HOA. One of them is you can get a very thin wire and put it up in the trees, paint it a dark color so people don't see it, and then you operate with that. Okay. The rain gutters are metal. You can actually use, and there was one I actually saw today where there's either, you either load the rain gutters themselves, you know, like the, because all these metal downspouts and such are, they're metal, right? You might have to use like some strap or something and bond them together electrically, but those work well. If it's plastic, it's not going to work. If it's metal, it's going to work. So let's see, rain gutter antenna. That's an idea. That's basically invisible, right?
Kitty. That's not going to work for me, Kitty.
Okay. Yeah.
She's wanting to walk all over everything. There you go.
Right. Okay. And I'm trying to find one here, too. But anyway, the idea is you're loading your rain gutters. You have to use a tuner or something for it. That's one way you could do it. If you have an attic is a good place. You could put an antenna. You could probably put a full-size dipole in many attics, right? There are attic antennas. What else in HOAs? Yeah. So, I mean, you could use it with a tuner you have in the shack too. A lot of people get by with attic dipoles. If you can get an attic dipole, that works too. TN07, I think Mike has a video about the TN07, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, I can't stop laughing about the kitten either. Right? Yeah, I mean, there are many things. The idea of a HOA antenna is to be as invisible as possible because you don't want the HOA people coming at you. When I was in an apartment, what I ended up doing was I just put a station in my car and I drove away and I operated that. So going mobile is another thing. What else? I had one of my friends actually lived in an apartment. He put up a ham stick on his car and he ran a coax at night and he operated that for a while. But that might not work for all people. Let's see what else. Anybody else has any other HOA ideas? Loop antennas. Yeah, you can have a loop antenna.
She's purring finally.
Nice. Do they like, did she have trouble like eating or drinking milk or anything or drinking water?
I just got her today. So I've got her some food. I've got her some water. So I'm just trying to let her get adjusted because she's been outside this whole time. Because the person I got her from, they have a kitty who doesn't like other kitty cats. So she's outside using the bathroom outside. So she's used to going outside and being an outside cat. So I'm bringing her in, and we're gonna get used to being an inside kitty.
Okay.
I've come down with the name Phoenix or Ember for her.
Okay. That's interesting. Alright. Striking information patterns. How does that work on the iPad? Okay. So it definitely won't hurt. It's not going to be good as well in free space because you have a lot of, you have to watch your building material. A lot of them are actually metal, and wood as well too. When wood gets wet, I don't really want wood to get wet, but it's siding and stuff gets wet, then kind of tank with it. You kind of probably have to up it lower power sometimes too.
Your audios all messed up. They just sound like you're going whoa, 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 whoa.
I sound like peanuts.
Yes, peanuts.
Okay.
That's what I'm putting in.
Yeah, I think this microphone got lost. That's why. I think I'll do it like this. Okay. All right. So yeah, the attic dipole, when you put it on the perimeter, I think, it will be attenuated by the wood a little bit. I mean, ARRL had an article about it in QST, and that kind of, that they had one about trees, but I think lumber and such will have the same problems. Okay. Yeah, this mic, I really got to get around to fixing this mic. I don't know what's going on.
What's wrong with it?
I don't know. It usually works good when I'm recording, but somehow when I go live, it doesn't work well. It's weird. It's just weird. I mean, I could use a Rode. The Rode's a little quiet though, but the Rode is kind of, I don't know. I use the Rode. I have the Rode receiver here. And I can do like this. I can do like this. I can do like this, turn it on. And I can do like this. Get this here. Please stand by. And I do the audio. I do.
Are you a happy kitty? Yes, I do have 2 dogs, and Roxy's been being a mama to it because when it runs or something, she goes in there and looks at it. She's like, "Ooh, what is this?" Oh my God. Mike, are you going to create a song now about my kitty? My little kitten. She's a sweetheart. She's an orange tabby.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. You sound like a Verizon Wireless commercial now.
Okay.
Can you hear me now? How about now? Is this better?
There's a parody about Verizon Wireless where it was Verizon in Iraq or something like that, and the guy was talking Farsi or something. Anyway, yeah, so an attic is basically RF transparent. True, if it's dry and you don't have any metal flashing or anything, that's true. And yeah, okay. Take it down when you're done. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to, to get active in an HOA. Thankfully, I've never had, well, I had to deal with that in apartments, but never in a house. Okay. Yes, if your dipole is anything but a straight line, it will be affected. But here's a good thing. Sometimes you can actually get away with bending it a little bit where it'll have an effect, but not that big of an effect. Okay? So it will work, but it'll kind of, it will work good enough, right? And then oftentimes what you need is good enough. You don't need perfect. Okay? But that's a good point, Jim. All right. So antennas. Anything else about antennas you want to learn?
No, noise the more I'm liking the photo.
The POTA?
No, I was reading what Cascadia said. I was reading what Anime said.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So another important thing is, and we'll probably have to do a whole, I'll probably do a whole video on SWR. So essentially, when you're, what in general terms is SWR. So when you have power carried by a feed line, and you terminate that into a load, right? The load has something called an impedance. I've been scolded by people saying, don't call it impedance. It's called impedance. Okay, I will call it impedance. The people have spoken. If you have them matched, right? And you have, the radio goes into the transmitter goes into a 50 ohm coax and a 50 ohm load, or they're matched, right? You will have the power being essentially delivered forward to the load. If they're not matched, you'll find some of that will reflect back. And they create, when they go backward, when you have this interaction of the forward power and the reflected power, you will have something in the line called a standing wave, right? And you have the ratio of the maximum value to the minimum value of that interference pattern is called standing wave ratio, or SWR. And the SWR is actually the same everywhere along the feed line, but you measure it along at the transmitter's connection to the feed line. Okay. There's a video from AT&T I'll have to link. Yeah, so generally, you want to make sure it's matched well and the SWR is low. But here's the thing about SWR. It's not like a perfect, you know, it's not something to be completely obsessed over, right? SWR is a measure of how well the power is being transferred to the antenna, but sometimes an antenna with better gain might have a little bit of a mismatch. And is that big of a deal? You know, it's a trade-off. It's a compromise, right? So, yeah, Rick Vias, as I call it, importance. Yeah. Yep. It's true. Voltage standing wave ratio. Okay. And that was on a technician test, by the way, right? And here from the technician book, they actually say, why does SWR matter? Low SWR indicates efficient transfer of power, exactly what I said, from the feed line because less power is reflected by the load, the antenna. So there's less loss, right? And I will add, there's less heat. That might not matter for a 5-watt POTA activation, but if you put 1500 watts in a, into an antenna and you reflect back 500, then yeah, you're going to have problems. Another effect is that the interference pattern causes voltages to increase in the feed line at the transmitter's output, and higher voltages can damage a transmitter's output circuits, particularly those final MOSFETs, transistors, and such, right?
Mm-hmm.
And although tube-type transmitters don't really have much of an issue. So Scott Klassen asks, what's the purpose of coiling coax near the feed point? So there's, as we mentioned, the LFA, right? They actually recommended at that you put like one of these coils near the feed point. And let me see if I'll bring it up here. Okay, so let's see here. The antenna balun. So some of them actually require loops of coax as an antenna balun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's kind of like a choke to prevent common mode currents, something called common mode currents coming back on the line. So basically, you will have current coming back and then basically radiating along the feed line, and that's the purpose of them. But most times, really, a lot of people just put them as drip loops. They really don't serve any other electrical purpose other than when the rain falls, you don't want this thing running back on the antenna. It's just there to go in a loop, and then it basically just drips down. So sometimes it's a balance, sometimes it's a drip loop. You generally find if you if it's more than one turn, it is a common mode choke. If it's just one turn or half a turn, it's usually just a drip loop. So yeah, you can actually also buy a choke, right? You can buy like a little inline choke, like I think like the radio, like DX Engineering, or I'm not advertising for them by the way, but all these radio stores sell them. I bought some from DXE, and they're high powered. So yeah, you have balun chokes. Yeah, especially for vertical antennas, they're kind of important for vertical antennas, especially if you don't have a lot of radials on your antenna, because remember that return current has to go somewhere. With the choke, you kind of like choke it, up at the antenna, and it just kind of stays there. But if you don't have one, it'll actually use the shield of the coax as the radial, as the return path, and that could end up being going back all the way to your shack. So it is better, I think, to have a good number of radials, but you also put a choke balun as to basically choke off all the common mode currents. Okay, even my verticals, yep, especially your verticals, I would say. If choking effects, yep. Well, it's not VSWR, it's more along the line of the return currents really don't have anywhere to go, so they use your coax as a return. So yeah, but if it affects your VSWR, that is a problem, right? If you have a dipole where the feed line comes away at 90-degree antenna angle, a choke may not be needed. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. So we talked about antennas. We talked about SWR. All right. And dipoles and ground planes we talked about.
Yep.
How long is that antenna?
Mm-hmm.
And directional antennas, we talked about them. Boy, we covered quite a lot in this. Antenna analyzers are a good tool to have, and I'll tell you about the several. I own several different types of antenna analyzers. Believe it or not, I do not own a nano VNA, which is kind of shocking. You'd think I have every instrument known to man. Do you have an antenna analyzer, Kat, or do you borrow one? No?
I hear you.
Yeah. Do you have an antenna analyzer?
Do I have an antenna what?
Analyzer.
No.
No? Okay.
Mm-mm.
All right. What about, so I actually have a few different types, and I'll show you when I have a, well, the first one I actually bought a long time ago was an MFJ 249, which is basically your basic antenna analyzer, and it's this one. And I'll show you this one in Chrome tab here. Right? Yeah, so this one, I had this one from a long time. And basically what it is, it has a transmitter in it, and it has an SWR bridge. Basically, it allows you to do basic measurements of SWR, and it has a signal generator too. Later on, I upgraded to an MFJ 259 with the dual meters, like one of these, right? Kind of like this. And these are useful because they're dirt simple to use. You know, you just switch it on, you connect your antenna, and you twiddle the knobs, and you're off to the races. You don't have to dig through multiple menus. People ask why use these antenna analyzers instead of the new sophisticated ones. Well, first of all, these are dirt simple. These you don't have to, to really do anything other than turn it on, select your frequency, and go. The other thing is these are rugged. I mean, I took this and I dropped one of these off a tower, believe it or not, right? It was still working when it was done.
Really?
Yeah. And people think you can't really do anything with these antenna analyzers. I could measure coax with these. I could measure, cable loss. I could measure all sorts of stuff with them. Just really versatile. All right. And then I ended up getting a Rig Expert A230 zoom. And I get, this was one of the original ones that I had. Let's see here. Trying to get the manufacturer's page. Yeah, so I had one of these, and these were really nice. But as I got more into microwave and VHF, UHF, I ended up getting an AA1400. So it's kind of like a higher frequency one. But I noticed the AA1400 has a different software from the 230 Zoom. And if you look at my video where I did the antenna inspection for SAM, KC2 OSR, you'll also see that I use this antenna analyzer to check out his whole system. So that's one of them. And the good thing about antenna analyzers is they could tell you all sorts of things about, they tell you all sorts of things about your antennas. They tell you SWR. But an important feature I use mine for is TDR, and it's not really a true TDR. What it does is it it measures the impedance of the line, right, of the transmission line, and it sweeps it, and then it does something called an inverse FFT, which is a mathematical function, and it would detect any faults along the line, any unevenness, like let's say you encounter a piece of coax, that part of coax that's damaged or it's loose or something. So those are very useful. Let's see, with a lawn dart. Yeah, the nano, the important measurement is Z, and whether that's true. Yes, whether it's capacitive or inductive and purely resistive. And some analyzers won't show that important difference. That's very true. All right. Yeah, the nano VNA is kind of like a very, it's a very interesting piece of kit. I think it's very complicated for a lot of people to use, especially if you're a beginner. But if you're, you're more advanced, and I actually use the VNA, not the nano VNA, to tune filters and such like that, right? It has the S11 and the S21. It has the two ports. Use those to tune filters. So, yeah. Yes, qualifier feed line end to end. Yes, fast Fourier. Yes, FFT. Use the TDR. Now you see, you probably use a real TDR, okay? They have and I've seen when I've done work with fiber optic cables and such like that, I've used a optical TDR to actually detect breaks and kinks in fiber lines and see where they're, the actual conditions they're in. That's an OTDR. All right. Okay. All right, we'll take a couple more questions, and I guess we can wrap it up. I see the kitten's asleep. I think Kat's going to be asleep too soon.
Yeah, she's over here sleeping.
Yeah. Do I have a ground earth resistance tester? Is that a Megger? And the Megger, I used to have one back in the old country. I don't have one here. And I've heard stories from electricians where they shock people with them. Yeah, but that's a pretty interesting tool. Yeah, it's a Megger. Yeah, I don't have one on me right now. I'll probably get one, but I mean, I never really had any real need to use it. But yeah. Submarine radio man, better than crawling through submarine, sail and connector. So, it's interesting. I was actually up at Groton the other day, and because my brother, he moved up there. He got reassigned up there. And I see they have the sub museum on base. So I think I'll probably go and see the sub museum. Submarine radio man, if you have any tips, let me know. If you were in the U.S. Navy, you probably were up at Groton, and that would be interesting. Yes, I have to watch Dave Kassler's video on the ground resistance tester. Yeah. Yeah, Mike Holtz on, yeah. Yeah, that's a good topic. I really should do a more deep dive into that one, because I think that'll be a lot of fun. I know Dave Kassler has a video too. Kind of interesting to see what it does up here. I've been told the soil conductivity up here is kind of poor, but to be honest, I don't know why. Our soil here is rich in iron and such. So anyway. All right, we're going to wrap it up. And I think Kat's going to wrap it up too. Welcome, and hope you had a good time with Two Chicks and a Radio. I'm going to try to do something with some more slides and stuff like that. And then I'm going to have my show, as in just me, on Sundays. So we're going to do a general Q&A. I like to do the Q&A and such. I'm going to try to fix these audio issues too. I actually have a boom arm with a mic I could use too. So, yep. All right, Kat, any final words?
totally muted. I forgot that I muted myself. No, everything's thank you so much for explaining antennas and everything, and I learned quite a bit, and I'm sure other people learned some stuff too. So yeah.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much, and be sure to like and subscribe. And before I go, thank you very much for 5K subscribers. Okay.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. Yes, you do have 5,000 subscribers now, don't you, Ria?
I am, and I'm probably going to combine that. My birthday's coming up, so I'm thinking of something nice to do. If you guys
Okay.
have any suggestions,
I
let
do.
me know.
I do.
You
We
know?
can do a
Yeah.
5K party
Yes. And
on
about
here, and we can invite a whole bunch of people on here, and then we can do the whoop whoop, ha ha, wee, that stuff.
Yeah. And Jim, if you want to volunteer sometime and come on, we'll talk about grounding and bonding, and other stuff. That'll be awesome. I'm sure you have a wealth of knowledge and other stuff, too.
We can even make it themed, like 80s theme. I can definitely get away with some 80s hair, and I'm sure I can do some makeup or something looks 80s looking. I got a whole get up.
I have the hair.
Well, what I did is I went simple, so I went with the side. I went it was like an 80s/90s party, so I kind of went like with my hair to the side, and I had it all poofy kind of, but with that like side ponytail going on. And I had a tank top, and I didn't have a scrunchie, so I had
Disco.
no, I had a t-shirt that I cut off to make it kind of like very 80s looking.
Right.
So I had it hanging off on the shoulder, so I had to cut the neck off. So I used that as a scrunchie. I made my own scrunchie. Yeah, I know. Very resourceful there. This is like last minute thing. My friend didn't tell me this until last minute that her daughter was having an 80s, 90s birthday party. I was like, what the heck am I going to do? So I found a neon shirt, cut it, and made this whole outfit. Had it hanging off the shoulder with some hot pink leggings and some heels that were had all sorts of colors on it. So yeah, you could totally do something like that.
I don't know.
Or
this is not 80s, is it?
no, that's not 80s. That is more along the lines of 50s and 60s. But we won't.
I bought this from I think it might have been Costco or BJ's or something, and I had the full intention. Oh, I bought this to go to Florida because I knew it was sunny. Yeah.
Oh yes, I didn't have any leg warmers, but I would have done that too.
Yeah. All right.
Well, 73, everybody. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe her channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe my channel. And don't forget to hit those notification bells.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.